Iran. Who do we send?
All right, lads, well, we're in position.
Bravo team offloads here. Alpha team stays on board to land downrange. This is capture or kill.
Ya son más de 10 años metiéndole y todavía sueno como nuevo. Balvin no tiene relevo, me sobra el dinero, el respeto y los huevos. Yo, cada movimiento que hago es luego otro nivel lo elevo. Tú sonaste, me pagaste y no lleva ni la mitad de lo que...
Watch the containers!
How the hell did Iran get their hands on this?
It's either Russia or us.
Anywhere I roam.
We need an army. I can get us an army.
Free to speak my mind anywhere. And I'll redefine anywhere.
Mexican Special Forces, 141, they are your brothers now.
Where I lay my head is home there.
Weapons hard, vaqueros.
Pre-order now and get early access to the open beta.
No matter how mild, all traumatic brain injury should be taken seriously. TBIs can affect your memory, mood, and overall health, but VA can help you manage TBI symptoms. Hey guys!
Learn more at www.mentalhealth.va.gov/TBI.
Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. My name is Travis. I'm the host. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hubazoo Network. You can find out more on hubazoo.com. And I want to thank my sponsors, Joyce Asack of Asack Real Estate, Army National Guard veteran Mark Holmes of Reapers Detailing and Power Washing, and my supporters, Semper Savage Salad Dressing, Bottom Gun Coffee, and Caisson Shaving Company. And this is August. We're rolling right through the year, and I want to say a couple months ago, I got an Instagram message from my guest, Lakeydra Houston. She's an Air Force veteran, 20 years, retired, with a very interesting story. And, you know, she has some stuff coming up, and I'm pleased to be talking with her now. Lakeydra, welcome, or Key, welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, it's a small world. We started talking over the subject of military sexual trauma, or MST, and you had sent me some stuff about your story. And I had talked to Heath Phillips a while ago, and we've kept in contact over the years, and you know him. And then I saw you talking with Ellsworth Williams. I know him, but we don't really know each other. and you all have a sexual trauma conference, MST conference in Florida at the end of August. So it's a really opportune time to get to talk with you. Before we get into the conference and what you're trying to do with your advocacy, kind of tell us your story a little bit of being in the military, if you could.
Yes, so I joined the military a year after high school. So I went to college, played volleyball, and joined the military a little bit after, no, a little bit before 9/11 had happened. So very excited, and then got scared when I saw 9/11. I went to basic training in January of 2002 and actually went to basic and was told I was going to be a cop and never had a desire to be a cop. I wanted to be medical. So went in and dealt with a lot as security forces. So it was a good, job at that time. I went to my first duty station. So within 6 months of me being in the military, it was less than 6 months, I was sexually assaulted by my leader. And so from that point on, I was struggling mentally, and I couldn't focus on what I was supposed to do. The mission, it was hard for me to focus on the mission, but basically, I did 10 years as a cop and 10 years as recruiting. I know we're going to go on my story a little later, so I kind of jumped ahead, but 10 years as a cop, 10 years as recruiting. And I was scared to share my story because I didn't want anybody to believe me. So I just kept things inside of me. And then I decided to expose it after one of the girls I recruited had went through the same thing I went through. So I stood up for myself and started fighting, and spent 10 years, and it was tough, but I finally understood that there's more to this. And even though I went through things, the military did bring me things as far as leadership, as far as me being able to have a voice, the resiliency it taught me. So those things, those tools I learned those going forward. So after that, 20 years, retired. I did recruiting in Central Texas, where a lot of things happened with Vanessa Guillen and a lot of those cases in Central Texas. So when seeing that and being in the midst of that, I started fighting.
So I don't want to go back to the nuts and bolts of the attack. It had to be traumatic, and it's my understanding, learning about this, that a lot of MST victims can still feel that very keenly.
Oh yeah.
What I'd like to ask you is this. I went in the military, you went in the military, we both served. And even before we swear the oath, right, we are told about the honor, courage, and commitment. No man left behind. We've got your six. There's an element of underlying trust in the people around you and your leadership. What was it like having that trust shattered in this way, more than anything else?
Wow. Yeah, that's a good question. But when that trust was shattered, I felt like I couldn't turn to anybody. So my best friend became the bottle. So I started drinking alcohol. I was scared to interact with anybody. I was scared to even trust a leader. I was scared to be along with a leader because seeing someone who resembled him, or maybe his smell or anything, it triggered me. So I would shut down. I would go in my room. I would scream, cry, yell. I went through a lot. So who do you have? You have nobody. When you do tell your friends, they're like, oh, he's like that. He's joking. He's they would make excuses for the sexual assault or sexual, harassment. So it was hard. It's a man's military. That's what I would hear. So you had no trust, not in your leaders, but you didn't have trust in the people around you at all. So I was on an island by myself. So again, drinking and attempted suicide in 2009 to cope with everything.
And that leads me to my next thing is some of the MST survivors I've known can't continue to serve. It causes problems. I mean, Heath had very real fallout problems from what he suffered in the Navy, but you stayed in.
Mm-hmm.
And so while this trust was broken, why did you choose to stay in and continue serving when for many others, and it's their choice. And I've never been in MST, but you took a different path.
So the reason why I stayed in is because I said, there's a reason for me to be here. I went through this, but there's a reason. I have to fight in the uniform. And I think that's what was for me. I want to fight in the inside of it and figure out what was going on with leadership and understanding a little bit more. And then I want to also become a leader that people can come to me and talk to me. So I wanted to be opposite of my leaders. When we struggle, sometimes we run away. I won't say run away, but we step away from things because of the fear and things it gives us. But for me, it was, I have to fight through this. I have to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else while I'm serving. So that's what gave me the push to stay in and continue fighting. And then also to seek the help. And I knew, and the biggest thing was, I knew if I left, I had nothing planned. So it was I going to go home to other issues that I went through, or should I stay in the military and figure this out? So I stayed in to figure it out.
Well, it's really insightful what you just said, because a lot of times I wonder, I mean, you know, you're a female service member, and I've always questioned, because I don't know, well, if this happens to a woman, why don't the other women in her section, platoon, you know, squadron, you know, battalion rally around this and say to leadership, hey, this happened to one of us. We don't want it to happen to us. You've got to fix this. The whole request mass process, you know, the leadership demands a lot of us. You know, I was enlisted, right? They can order us to our death, literally. You know, why don't other women, and I'm just saying, because this is just what I've heard, a lot of times this happens to a female, and she finds out that the women don't want to get involved and they don't want to be associated with her.
Correct.
Do you have any insight on that, or am I just reading that wrong?
No, you're correct. If you ever say anything, it seems like more division when you step out and say what happened. So when I would tell a friend in the background of what happened, it was like, oh, well, what did you do to cause it? It was victim shaming. So why would I tell another woman if I'm getting shamed every time I mention it? You know, why that it was no support system. It was more of, again, like you said, if I hang out with you, I'm going to look bad. I'm going to look like the troublemaker. So they did push me away when I did mention it, and also victim shamed me. You know, were you acting whorish? Those things I would hear. And some of these people I thought were my best friends. So it's at the point where you just don't say anything to anybody. And it's sad that we don't rally around. So I promised myself that I was going to start doing that. I want to be different from the other women that I saw. And unfortunately, going through the ranks, it still was worse. You can be at E7, you know, E7, and you still tell somebody else what happened to you. And it's still like, hey, but some things we just got to keep within ourselves, you know. And also You're hearing about, and you're hearing about murders. You're hearing about people who step up and say something. Now they're getting killed. They're dying. So now nobody really wants to get involved or say anything if people who are speaking up are getting killed.
I do want to go into that, because I do want to go into that, but here's one of the things that you know, I learned about your story. We talked on Instagram, and I'm like, okay, this is not your typical story, and I definitely think you have something to add here. Is you said several times before we talked today and on this show that you were alone, and then you decided to stay in and fight. But really, what was the catalyst to say, you know what, I'm not going to get out, I'm not going to quit, I'm not going to give into the bottle, I'm going to put my uniform on and I'm going to go to battle because I think I can make change? You know, isn't that real leadership in a way?
It is. And the thing about, we forget leadership. We forget how to lead our people. We focus so much on managing them. Oh, you should do this. You have to do this way. But people have feelings like, what is going on? Why are you late to work? Don't just yell at me and give me paperwork for being late to work. Don't yell at me because I'm drinking. You don't even understand the underlying issue. So true leadership is sitting down, talking to your people, and understand what is truly going on outside the uniform and inside the uniform. Leadership is about motivating people to be greater than who they think they could be. So if they have trauma or something going on, as a leader, we have to step up, and we see things that are off, that are against their norm. We need to step up and figure out what's going on. So I wanted to be the person to say, hey, I'm going to be different from my leaders. I'm going to step out and figure out what's going on. And I've done that. Now, there were times that I didn't, because I had the fear of, you know, saying something, or the fear of, I knew something was going on, but I didn't want to get involved, similar to my situation. But then I remember how I felt. I remember being alone. So now guess what I have to do? I have to actually go out there and start doing the work. And that's what I did. Stayed in to do the work.
As you stayed in, to do the work. Did you ever connect with other service members, male or female, that were on the same wavelength as you, and said, this is a good idea, I'm with you, or were you truly alone your whole 20 years?
I'm going to tell you, I had people who supported me in the background. Nobody was beside me. There were a few that would just be like, keep on fighting. But it was more of nobody wants to get involved. It's hard to say nobody wants to get involved. My true people who actually stood up for me were people who had got out, veterans, or actual MST survivors. So that's all I had. So when we're in uniform, it's just, unfortunately, people don't want to be involved in things.
One of the things that I understand, and what I saw when I was in the Marine Corps, is you get involved. There's two sides of the coin. You get involved in a very real event, like this person is not inflating the facts. They're presenting a good thing, regardless of who they are, their moral standing, whatever. A wrong was committed, and you've got to fix that. And then I've seen it where you get ready to go to bat for somebody and find out that they got mad at their section chief and platoon sergeant. So you know what, I'm gonna get him because this accusation will end the career. How do we get around that? Because from what I've seen in the little time I was in, you kind of said what I already know. The military does not like bumps. They don't like squeaky wheels, and they will pound them out. So how do you be the squeaky wheel effectively?
So you have to remember your why. Why are you doing it? And you have to be honest in everything you do. As you mentioned previously, yes, you have those ones that are doing it out of spite, but it's different when you have somebody doing it out of spite and doing it out of actual hurt and trauma. So that's the thing. There's two different things with it. I never had anger towards the person who did it. I had anger towards his actions, but I couldn't understand that moment. It was just I was so scared to even say anything because I knew he had such a reputation, because I'm a very forgiving person. At that time I struggled, but now how I see things, I'm very forgiving. But I just remembered my why. Why am I doing this? It's bigger than me. It's more people out there. And then remembering that when I attempted suicide, I was saved for a reason. Somebody jumped out, and my ex-husband jumped out and got the gun from me, and I was in a corner hiding. I don't know how he found me, but to this day, I'm like, wow, it's a reason why I'm here. It's a reason why I should fight. So you have to be that squeaky wheel. They're going to get mad at you, but until change happens, people are losing their lives. Until change happens, and we understand true leadership, I'm going to keep on fighting. And we have to remember that, the why.
This leads me to the next part of what I want to talk about. And you've alluded to it several times before, we talk today, is people getting hurt for speaking out or for acting out. And I don't want to bash on Fort Hood, but Fort Hood is the most public examples of these instances that happen to not only a female, but to a man. Let's start with Vanessa Guillen. She was one of those who was like, hey, something happened to one of my troop and it's wrong. And from what I understand is she tried to go up the chain of command. The chain of command was not discreet, and she got killed for that. And then Elder Fernandez was being messed with sexually by, and hazed, and his leadership didn't pick up on it, kept, hammering him down, and he mysteriously died. Is this a larger problem in the military, where it's better for a soldier, sailor, Marine, Air Force, person to die than to deal with the problem? Because that's kind of the message they're sending. I'm not sure if they realize that. Am I reading that right? What's your view on that?
I mean, I think it's across the board. Fort Hood it has so many soldiers, so that place is known for a lot, but it's all over. You have Fort Bragg incidences, you have Hawaii, you have a lot of bases that we're even looking to now that have a lot of things happen. Asia Graham, she's another person who, went out about a sexual assault, and then they said it was a suicide, but she was mysteriously dead. So it's so many people out there, I mean, it is a huge problem. It is a huge problem. Think about, now let's go all the way back to Lavina Johnson. Okay. What she happened. They said it was a suicide, gunshot to the head, burned, in her private area, those things. Her father has been fighting for years and nothing has happened. So this is a bigger problem. I mean, it even went to the Congress and went up to all these, politicians, but at the end of the day, her case has not been reopened, or they closed it really fast, but it hasn't been reopened to investigate all the facts and everything they have. So it's like, regardless of what you do, even if you have facts, even if you have the evidence in front of your face, when it comes to the military, they hide a lot of things because I feel like they want to protect their leaders instead of protecting the victims.
Well, that's what I come to, and I hate to say it, and some of the things that have happened in the last year with Afghanistan and a couple other things that we're not going to get into right now, but there's instances where it's like, wait a minute, the same leadership that will, in your career for being, 2 pounds overweight or 5 minutes late or, having a uniform infraction, is like, nobody saw anything. No one knows anything. Sorry. And so it sends a bad message, right?
Right.
You're trying to, retain soldiers. You're trying to, increase enlistment. And I have to think this is a contributing factor to why some people are like, no, I don't want my daughter to join the military.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I definitely, and as I did a TV show a few days ago on the news, but I went through the same. I told them, as a recruiter in Central Texas, it was hard for me to recruit. Like, I would have to go in there and help bring all these people into the military. And the first thing the parents will ask me, will my kid get sexually assaulted? What do I have to do? What's going to happen? Will you promise me that you will protect them? I didn't know what to say. I couldn't promise them that I could protect their child. Once they left my office, what can I do? So it was hard for 10 years of being a recruiter to go out and say, join the military, when I know what was done to me, what was done to other people. It was very hard. It was hard. And I felt like a hypocrite for even being a recruiter. So it was hard, but this is why our numbers is down, because everybody's bringing these injustices to the light, to the forefront. And so now people are really watching and paying attention.
And that's the thing, right? I got asked last year, hey, would you have your son join, the Marine Corps right now, with what happened in Afghanistan? I'm like, probably not. And it goes back to what I feel earlier, right? Is we make a promise to defend, America from all enemies, right? And it's really shocking that sometimes the worst enemies are right next to us in formation, Lakeydra.
That's true. And sometimes I would want to go overseas and go to war. I prefer go to war than stay here and fight, because I was fighting in my own country for freedom, just to be heard. I was fighting for other people to be heard. So it's like, it's so hard to fight for a country that won't listen to you, that won't even, help you, or won't even help other people. So my fight is to make sure that everybody that moving forward, I didn't say anything when it first happened to me. I didn't say anything. I didn't report it. I was too scared. I was fearful. And sometimes it bothers me, that I didn't say anything, but I'm like, if I said something, I would have been dead. I really honestly think if I would have said something, I would have been dead. So I definitely am one of those people that I'm happy I didn't say anything in the moment, but still, it's the fear of seeing other people's evidence, and when watching them and talking to them and advocating for them. I would have preferred going overseas and getting killed than staying here and fighting for an injustice, or fighting for things when my own country's not supporting me or supporting us.
You carried this weight for so long. You said the bottle was your friend. You said you attempted suicide in 2009. You carried this for a very long time, Lakeydra. So what was it like when you finally got it out and addressed it and let people know that this did happen to you? What was that like for you?
It felt like a weight was lifted off of me. Like, it felt like I could breathe, I felt like I was in a bubble for so long. I don't even remember half of my career because I was either drunk or I was so traumatized. I don't really remember the good times. So it was a weight off, and it was when I finally came out, I was able to seek help. And when I say seek help, we do these, military trainings they give you, and actually go in and talk to the therapist. But it was a blocking there. I couldn't listen. So when that happened, I was able to listen more. I was able to heal. I was able to speak freely. It was like a switch change for me. And during this time, also understand, during that 2009, my sister was sexually assaulted and she was killed. Even though hers was outside the military, it still affected me. So when I knew her, I had to keep on fighting. Once she passed away, I had to fight even harder for sexual assault victims.
You retired not that long ago, correct?
Correct. March. Mm-hmm.
But that does not stop what you're trying to do. In fact, if I had to, say, looking at what you're doing now, you have fully embraced this as your mission and your purpose in life. What do you do for people going through MST situations, male or female, Lakeydra?
So basically, what I do is, first thing, an emotional support. That's what we do. Emotional support, and then resources. So what we do is, I just started a Facebook or a group, and we go in there and we talk about what we can do to support each other. We talk about their cases moving forward. I do public speaking about it. So that's what I do. I am their support system. We all have the same story. Nobody supported us. We all felt alone. So we have to make sure we support each other. Certainly talking to Heath, that support group is important, that emotional support. So that's what I do. Resources, make sure we take care of them and just be there for them.
So hypothetically, if I may,
Mm-hmm.
you get a soldier or sailor, because he told me one of the things that became evident is his parents immediately noticed something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't quite know how to draw out of him. And other MST survivors I've talked to said the same thing, is really the first people that kind of notice that something's wrong is, and it's kind of messed up to say this, it's not the people you are bunking with, going on formation runs with, or, hanging out in the common area with. It's your parents and siblings. What should a parent or sibling who's thousands of miles away potentially from their loved one do when they start noticing these kinds of distancing from that? Is there anything they can do right now, or what's the course of action to take?
So it's hard to answer that question because I didn't have that parental support system.
Okay.
When it came to that, and there are other survivors who went through the same thing. Told not to seek therapy, told to pray about it, those things. But I would say, for me as a mother moving forward, the biggest thing you need to do is talk to your child. If you see those things, see what's going on. Ask them, how are things going on with you, or what's going on? How has the military been for you, or whatever situation? How was life? Basically, try to figure out just what's going on. And then as you see more, just break it down. Okay, so what is actually, I see that you've changed. I see certain things going on. Is there anything you want to talk to me about? And sometimes we have to ask those questions. Has anybody touched you? Has anybody made you feel uncomfortable? We have to be 100% honest with them. Once we see those things, and even if we can't reach them, bring a therapist in, bring somebody in they can talk to, but make your children feel comfortable to tell you that it's okay to come to me and talk to me, and don't be judgmental. Don't be biased when they tell you what's going on. They just need a listening ear. They don't need opinions. They need a listening ear when they're going through these traumas. And we have to do that as parents.
So let's move this around a little bit. So you're the E1 to E4, and this happens to all ranks, but let's just say you're in your service range, you're an E1, you're an E3, and you've just started off your military career and this happens. What's your suggestion to do? Because in the Marine Corps, you're told something like this happens, you go to your section head, you go to your platoon sergeant, and request mass happens, and this will be done in 24 hours. And I found out that's not the case. what's the correct action to do if this happens to you?
The first thing is find somebody. I don't trust the military when it comes to this, and this is just my opinion.
Okay.
I don't trust the SHARP system. I don't trust anything. I just don't. So honestly, what I would do is reach out to somebody outside, which is their, maybe a parent or support system you have. Let them know what's going on. Talk to your Congress, talk to them, and just let them know, hey, I don't feel comfortable with going direct to the leadership. But understand, if you do report it, there are consequences with that, unfortunately. So I would say get a good support system, talk to somebody and let them know, hey, this is what's going on, and seek therapy. We have things called the Vet Center that help actual active duty members. They fall under VA, but not really, but they do help active duty members. So go to the Vet Center. They're in every state. You can find them and talk to somebody, a therapist, get a therapist to figure out those emotions. And then honestly, be ready, because this is going to be triggering. So make sure you're ready to fight. When you're ready to fight, speak out.
Now, I was going to ask you about the SHARP system.
Mm-hmm.
He's talked about it a whole lot, but you don't trust that system either. Why is that?
Different cases that I've been a part of, and just seeing the SHARP complaints and how they were handled. It seemed more of a victim shaming. I'll go back to that. It seemed more of protecting the leader, not protecting the victim. And even when I made a public speech about with the National Crime Victims Institute, I went and talked to them publicly. And there were military liaisons there, victim advocates, SHARP, all those people there. And hearing how they responded to me, that's how I knew the system was still broke. Because some of their comments was, oh, well, we don't believe that happened. No, the SHARP system's supposed to help you. No, it's done this. So as I was speaking, when they stood up and asked questions, I said, so what about Vanessa Guillen? What about all these people who have spoke up and said something? What about Asia Graham? What about all those people who have reported to SHARP and ended up getting killed or victim shamed or whatever? And then nobody could say anything. That's the thing. The SHARP is, to me, it's always protecting the leaders. I think the SHARP system needs to be taken out the leaders' hands, and they should not determine what goes on. They should not.
Well, there's two thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thought where I've talked to a couple other MST survivors who are like, we just need to improve SHARP for leadership. And there's the other thought saying, you know what, forget the military leadership. We need to have a civilian oversight entity to handle SHARP cases. And it's funny, it's about halfway down the middle. Some people in the military do not want civilians poking around. Some people are like, you know what, this is not going to change. They brought it on themselves. Let's bring civilians in to oversee this. What's your thought on that?
So I believe that we should bring civilians in. Now they do have civilians, doing SHARP, SAPR, those, they do have civilians in that. My issue with the SHARP system is that I know in the Army, in one instance, I know for a fact, they rotate in and out. So you may have somebody there for 2 years and somebody else comes in, and it's on a voluntary basis. So it's not, it's an involuntary basis for some of them. So to me, it's like, why have somebody rotate in 2 years? You're just learning everything, and you're getting out and leaving and going back to your previous MOS or FSC. So it's more of a voluntary or involuntary thing, but it's not people who saying, hey, I 100% want to be a SHARP person, or I want to advocate and I want to stay in this role. They're switching in and out. It's no consistency. So that's why I think civilians should stay in it, because we can have consistency and we can have people that stay in there and don't have to PCS or don't have to go back to their career field. So to me, adding civilian into the SHARP system, I think it will be the best bet.
As you grow your outreach, what resources would you say you need to be, like a better term, more effective?
I think just getting the message out, to me, will be effective, and to have actual leaders sit down and listen to us. I know HEAP does that, but I feel like we need a survivor panel. We need a panel of MST survivors, and have leaders go to that and learn from us and sit down and talk with us and understand what's going on and what we need to do to improve. So I I would like to have that.
Well, let's talk about leaders for a second. You and I both know that being an officer or a leader in the military has become very political, very, how do I look, make me look good, and my troop, staff, whatever, is just to get me to my next career run. So it's my understanding that is why the reluctance is there to meet this head on. But I would think that if I'm a leader and one of my people come to me with this problem, it would actually be a good thing to show that I meet this head on. And I unequivocally sit there and make the statement through my actions that if you mess with one of my people, I will bring as much punitive action against you as I possibly can. Wouldn't that be a strength? Wouldn't us enlisted respond to that a lot better than just seeing it swept underneath the rug?
Correct. It's about being human. We forget human. We're soldiers and we're these military members, and we forget what the human aspect of leading. We just think leading is getting the mission done. We're so mission driven that we forgot the part of being human. And so that's the part we need to go back to it. Remember, what if this is your child? What if this was your niece, your other? You have to remember that. And we're forgetting that.
Right. Right. So you have this conference coming up in Florida later this month. I think it starts on the weekend of the August
26th
and 27th, right? Would you tell me about that? Because, I've seen a lot of MST survivors are starting to do what you want to do. You want to pull together and be that panel. What's this conference going to be about, Lakeydra?
So this conference is going to be about us sharing our story. It's going to be veterans, and we're just going to talk, and these mostly MST survivors. So we're going to sit down and talk about what we went through, the processes that are broken, what needs to fix it moving forward. Our job is to make sure that the new generation of military members do not have to go through what we went through. That is our job. And also to be a voice for those who feel like they can't say anything. So this is going to be us talking about what we have, what resources we have. We'll have therapists there. We will have, and we will give out resources so they can understand what it takes to heal. So at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to help everybody just get some kind of support and just let them know, let our story be heard.
Is this going to be an annual conference, or, are you going to have it in different locations next year, or is this just a one-time thing?
So I think we're just starting it out. I know we're going to continue moving forward. We just want to make sure that we have the support, but I think this is going to hopefully be annually. We're just starting out with this, but I think it'll be annually. And I think looking at different locations, hopefully if we have more support and resources, we can move it around to different locations. But yes, I definitely think this is going to take off.
Well, I will say this, Lakeydra, talking with Heath, talking with others, and talking with yourself, I do want you to know that you have support here. I feel very strongly about this because, it's not really a promise, right? It's the young child, or, I say young child, but they kind of are signing their name on the dotted line. It's not their parents or family, but the implied promise is, okay, I'm going to take your kid, instead of going to college or trade school, we're going to put them into a job where they might get hurt. But I'm going to do everything I can to protect them. And that's kind of been broken.
Yeah.
And so I want to support those people like yourself who are bringing light to this. So you have my support. You have
Thank
my support. I really wanted you to understand that. As we kind of wind this down, you were in a couple of questions. You were an MP for 10 years. I had to say that. But that being said, did you ever in your MP time have to deal with an MST issue?
I did. And the words that were said was another reason why I didn't say nothing at the time, because it was a male on male. And it wasn't, I think it triggered me. It really triggered me. And I had to leave. I had to go. But it was the fact that people were saying, oh, I'm trying not to say it, but he's gay, or he deserved it, or he was drunk, or he was flirting, or those things that you say. It was like they're supposed to support them, and you're making these comments outside of the room, which the guy probably could have heard us. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter how you look or how you are. It doesn't matter what sex, gender you are. Everybody gets sexually assaulted. Anybody is able to. But to shame them for saying anything or calling them gay or whatever because it happened, because in that instant that person may not have been, and may just been drunk, and somebody took advantage of them. So it's that it hurts to see it. So that's why the judgmental piece, I was struggling. I struggled.
As you reflect back, because you did retire just recently, and you're not in the military anymore. If you had to go back and do it again, would you join the military?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I would.
Yeah.
And the only reason why is because it made me a fighter. It made me understand resiliency. If I would have stayed home, I would have been in the streets doing things I shouldn't be doing. But it showed me that I can bounce back from anything. That's what the military taught me. And it taught me to become a leader. I wasn't born a leader, but I was made into one. So that's what I would do it all over again if I could.
So you said you're a mother and you have, children of your own.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like living the example that you want them to follow?
Sometimes they have to remind me to be a mom because I want to fight. So I have to tell them, I have to help them understand why I'm doing it. And so it's just making sure they understand, what's going on in the world, and just being, helping them see things through different lenses. But also, I have to, they're my backbone.
Awesome.
I have to make sure I take
Awesome.
care of them. Yeah.
So what's the name of the conference again in Florida? Just I want to make sure I get it right.
Yeah, so it's the MST conference, but it's they're trying to change to more military sexual assault, because trauma is what happened after it occurs. So we're trying to change it to the military sexual assault conference. So it's I'm so excited for it. Our coming together is to make sure we are in the fight and not just talking. So that's what we're focusing on, actually action and not talking. So
Awesome.
great.
Awesome. Well, again, you have my support, and I want to say I just really appreciate you coming on and sharing so openly and candidly about what's going on. And I think this is what people need to understand and hear. A lot of people don't understand this, because if in the civilian world, if this happens, there's a very different way it's handled.
Right.
It's very immediate, very abrupt, and it's continue with training. As a manager, I'm a manager. There's things I'm supposed to do without delay. If one of my staff comes and tells me this has happened to them, it's just expected. And I think that is missed on the military side. So I want to thank you for sharing. And again, what a story. This happens to you. You carry this weight around, and you find a way to help others through that. It's just really impactful, Lakeydra.
Thank you so much.
Well, as we say on Oscar Mike Radio, Lakeydra, we are mission in flight. We hope your mission takes off and, successfully keeps launching. And again, thank you. And I'd like to talk to you again if you'd like to.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me.
So that is it, folks. I'm going to have some links in the Oscar Mike Radio show post where you can follow along with Lakeydra and support her mission, and understand that, you can make change wherever you are. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for joining me and watching Oscar Mike Radio. Now go to OscarMikeRadio.com and click shop to check out all the cool merchandise from Authentically American. All proceeds go to veteran service organizations. We are mission in flight.